Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. My name is Maurice Ross. I am 41 years old, born and raised in Maryland. For 6 years, I believed I had built the kind of home a man could die proud of, the kind of life my father used to talk about when he said a man needed roots. I believed that right up until last night, when everything I thought I knew about my family shattered over baked salmon and mashed potatoes. It was a regular Thursday dinner, the sort of quiet evening that never makes the news but makes a life. The triplets, my 6-year-olds, Jalen, Jada, and Jace, were arguing about who had the biggest scoop of ice cream waiting in the freezer. My wife, Tanisha, sat across from me, scrolling through her phone with a small smile on her face at something I could not see. I remember thinking how peaceful it all looked, like the opening shot of a commercial for a perfect family. Then she sighed, set down her fork, and said it. Flat. Casual. Like she was commenting on the weather. Maurice, stop acting like my children's father. You are just a substitute. For a second, the words did not register. The hum of the refrigerator, the clatter of Jace's spoon, the soft chatter of the kids, all of it seemed to fold in on itself. The room did not go quiet so much as it went distant. I stared at her, waiting for the grin, the "I am only kidding," some sign that I had misheard. She did not look up from her phone. She slid her thumb across the screen, eyes still on whatever held her attention. I set my fork down slowly. Say that again, I said. Tanisha did not even raise her head. You heard me. The triplets went silent. Jada's lower lip trembled. Jalen looked at me with wide, confused eyes. Jace reached under the table and grabbed his sister's hand. That tiny movement, his 6-year-old fingers clutching hers, burned into my memory harder than Tanisha's words. I pushed my chair back. The scrape of wood on tile echoed through the dining room, sharp and too loud. Tanisha, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. After everything. She cut me off. I'm tired of pretending, Maurice, she said, finally putting the phone down. You're not their real father. You have done enough, but it is time you stop acting like you own us. For a moment, I thought I might laugh. The absurdity of it sat on my tongue like something sour. Instead, I felt something colder slide through me, a clarity that frightened me because it was so calm. I looked at the kids, then back at her. When I spoke, my voice came out very quiet. Leave my house. She blinked, surprised. Maybe she had expected me to beg, to argue, to defend myself like a man on trial. Maybe she thought I would cling, but somewhere deep inside, a door had closed. Her mouth opened, then shut again. She pushed her chair back hard enough to rattle the table and stormed off toward the bedroom. I did not follow her. Instead, I sat there with the kids, breathing shallow, forcing my hands not to shake. Everything is all right, I said, though my voice trembled. Finish your dinner. Okay. I helped them eat, joked half-heartedly about who would get the biggest scoop of ice cream after all, then took them upstairs. I read their favorite bedtime story while my chest felt like it had been split open. When they finally fell asleep, I went back downstairs. Tanisha's plate sat half-eaten on the table, salmon flaking off the edge. Her phone lay face down beside her glass. The faint glow from the aquarium reflected off the wedding photo hanging on the wall. Her in white, me in a gray suit, standing under an oak tree in a park outside Baltimore, both of us grinning like we had won something permanent. That night, I did not touch the bed. I sat on the couch in the dark, the television off, watching the reflection of the street lamp flicker in the window. Her sentence kept looping in my mind like a broken recording. You're just a substitute. Not a partner. Not a father. Not a man she loved. A substitute. I had left my architecture firm in Seattle to marry her. Sold my condo. Poured every dollar and every hour into this house, into these children, into this version of family we had promised each other. I had memorized bottle schedules, learned how to braid Jada's hair, gone to every parent-teacher conference, even when Tanisha stayed home. And now, after 6 years, I was a substitute. I did not know it yet, but that one sentence had just rewritten my entire life. Because when a man's heart breaks that cleanly, revenge does not come from rage. It comes from a cold kind of clarity. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, when the house was quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint bubbling of the aquarium, I walked into the hallway and stopped in front of the family photo wall. Every frame was a chapter of a story I had believed was real. Tanisha in the hospital bed, exhausted but smiling, the triplets bundled in pink and blue blankets. The children's first day of preschool, their backpacks almost bigger than their bodies. Our first family trip to Ocean City, Maryland, with me holding 3 melting ice creams while Tanisha laughed. It all looked so perfect. Too perfect, in hindsight. I reached out and straightened one crooked frame. It was our wedding photo, the one she had insisted we take under that old oak tree. I remember the way she had looked at me that day, eyes wide, promising me forever. I had believed her. I'd staked my future on that belief. When I met Tanisha, she was 28, a single mother of 3-month-old triplets. We met at a grocery store in Baltimore. She was at the checkout line, eyes red, 3 infant carriers in her cart, and her card kept declining. The cashier's voice grew sharper with every attempt. People in line behind her sighed and shifted, irritated. She started crying, trying to dig through her purse with shaking hands, mumbling apologies no one wanted to hear. I did not think. I stepped forward and said, "Add it to mine." She turned toward me, startled, half angry, half ashamed. "You do not have to," she began. "I know," I said. "Let me." That was the start of everything. In the parking lot, I helped her load the groceries and the babies into her car. We talked. She told me that the children's father had died in a car accident before they were born. She said she had moved back to Maryland to start over, that she wanted someone stable in her life, someone who could give her children a chance at normal. I had wanted a family. I had wanted to stop drifting from project to project, city to city, like a man who was always visiting but never arriving. My father used to say, "Son, a man without a home is just a shadow." I thought Tanisha and the triplets would be my anchor. We were married 9 months later. Everyone said I was moving too fast, that I barely knew her. I did not care. I built a nursery with my own hands, painted the walls soft green, assembled 3 cribs until my fingers ached. I worked late nights to pay off her debts. I memorized every lullaby I could find, learned which child liked to be rocked, and which liked to be sung to. Those children became my heartbeat. Now, sitting on the dark couch, I wondered how long she had been feeling the way she spoke at dinner. When had I stopped being daddy and become the substitute? Was it when the real father, whoever he truly was, had suddenly decided to reappear? The thought made my chest hurt in a way that was part anger, part humiliation, mostly disbelief. I thought about waking her up, demanding answers, yelling until she broke. But I heard my father's voice in my head. The man who shouts first loses. So instead, I stayed quiet. I went into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and stared at my reflection in the dark window. My eyes looked older than 41. Not tired from lack of sleep, but tired from carrying something heavy for too long. That was when I noticed her phone still sitting on the dining table, screen glowing faintly, unlocked. I hesitated, fingers hovering above it. I'm not the kind of man who snoops. Or at least I had not been, before tonight. But after what she had said, trust was not something I owed her anymore. I tapped the screen. Notifications filled the lock screen. One name repeated itself again and again. Darnell Wallace. The name hit me like a punch. My stomach turned. I scrolled just far enough to read the most recent message. "Cannot wait to see you again tomorrow, baby. The kids miss me too. Tomorrow." That was when I understood that her insult had not been random. It had been calculated. I put the phone back exactly where I had found it and sat down, elbows on my knees, hands clasped. "I see," I whispered to the empty room. "Pain can break you, or it can build something far colder inside you." That night, something in me shifted. I was not going to yell. I was not going to cry. I was going to learn the truth, and then I was going to make her feel it. By morning, I tried to convince myself that maybe it was innocent. Maybe Darnell was an old friend from high school, or a co-worker with an unfortunately affectionate way of texting. Maybe I was reading too much into it. I wanted to believe that so badly I almost did. Saturday afternoon, the house looked like any other black family's home in a quiet Maryland neighborhood. The triplets were in the living room, building a blanket fort out of couch cushions. Tanisha was folding laundry, humming softly. I was fixing a loose door hinge in the hallway, pretending not to be listening to every vibration in the air. Then I heard it. The cheerful chime of her ringtone cut through the sound of the vacuum cleaner. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table. I glanced over without meaning to. The same name lit up the screen. Darnell W. calling. My hand froze on the screwdriver. Tanisha noticed where I was looking. In one quick motion, she grabbed the phone and turned her back. "Hey," she said, her voice softening. "I told you not to call me when." She glanced up and saw me watching her. Our eyes met. For a heartbeat, the room held its breath. She swallowed, turned slightly away, and added in a lower voice, "It is just a client from work." She ended the call so fast it might as well have burned her hand. "Tell him I said good evening," I said. My voice was calm, almost polite. That rattled her more than if I had shouted. Her hand shook slightly as she pretended to tidy some folded shirts. "You are acting paranoid, Maurice," she said, forcing a laugh that did not reach her eyes. "You really need to stop overthinking everything." "Do I?" I asked, still holding her gaze. She looked away first. She mumbled something about needing space and walked upstairs. I watched the way her shoulders tightened, the way she checked her phone as soon as she thought I was out of sight. After she disappeared upstairs, I stood in the middle of the hallway for a long moment, staring at the silent phone she had left behind. My pulse was slow, steady, too steady. I realized this was not the loud anger that makes a man slam doors. This was the quiet, surgical kind of rage that waits and collects evidence. That night, I did not go to bed again. I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, the house dark around me except for the glow of the screen. I thought about her sudden weekend work meetings, the night she claimed she was too tired for dinner, the new perfume that did not match the one I had given her last Christmas. Little details I had brushed aside began to line up, forming a pattern I could not ignore. Around 1 o'clock in the morning, I decided to call her bluff. I opened a new text message and typed Darnell's number as I had seen it on her screen. I wrote, "We need to talk about Tanisha." Then I deleted it. I tried another approach instead. I texted her, from the couch, even though she was upstairs. "Who is Darnell?" A second later, I heard the faint vibration of her phone upstairs. I watched the status on my screen. Delivered. Read. No reply. Then I heard it again, the sound of the phone being silenced. That told me everything I needed to know. The triplets woke around dawn, feet shuffling across the hardwood floors in their pajamas, hair messy, voices thick with sleep. "Is Mommy still mad?" Jada asked, climbing onto a chair at the table. "No," I said, pouring cereal into bowls. "Mommy is just tired." I smiled at them, helped them pour milk, wiped up spills. On the surface, I was a father doing what fathers do. Underneath, my mind was not on the cereal or the sticky table. It was on Tanisha, on Darnell, on what exactly she meant when she said I was just a substitute. Because now I had a new curiosity. It was not just about cheating. It was about the lie she had told me years ago, the one about the children's father being dead. If this Darnell was truly him, then my whole marriage had not been built on love. It had been built on a lie from the first day. A few days later, truth slipped into my life not with a bang, but with a careless sentence. It was a warm afternoon. I was in the backyard grilling burgers while the triplets drew chalk rainbows on the driveway. The air smelled like charcoal and summer. Tanisha's best friend, Charisse, pulled up in a blue sedan, her sunglasses perched on top of her head. Charisse had always been around, loud, confident, fiercely loyal to Tanisha. If Tanisha was the flame, Charisse was the smoke that followed. "Hey, Maurice," Charisse said, sliding off her sunglasses as she walked toward the patio. "Where is Tanisha?" "Parent-teacher meeting," I replied, flipping a patty. The sizzle of the grill filled the silence for a second. Charisse laughed once, a short sound. Another one. These teachers must really love her. There was something in her tone, something a little too sharp, a little too amused. I looked up, narrowing my eyes slightly. "What is that supposed to mean?" She waved a hand quickly. "Nothing. You know me. I just talk too much." She forced a smile, but I watched her eyes. She was nervous. That was when I knew she knew something I did not. "Burger," I offered, trying to keep my voice casual. She nodded and sat at the patio table, crossing one leg over the other. For a while we talked about safe topics, the kids, her job, how quickly time seemed to be moving. But Charisse kept checking her phone, biting her lip, glancing toward the street as if she expected someone to appear. Then it happened. She took a bite of her burger, swallowed, and said, almost under her breath, "At least Darnell is back to help with the kids' school fees." Tanisha needed that. The spatula stopped midair. The world seemed to tilt just enough to make me feel off balance. What did you just say? I asked. Sharice's eyes widened. She looked like someone who had just stepped off a cliff and realized there was nothing beneath her. Oh no. I did not mean, forget I said that. No, I said quietly, setting the spatula down. You said Darnell is back. Back from where? She swallowed hard, her throat working. I thought you knew, she whispered. I thought Tanisha told you. Told me what? I kept my voice low, because the triplets were still drawing on the driveway, their laughter floating in through the screen door. Sharice stared down at the table. When she spoke, her words tumbled over one another. That Darnell is not dead. He never was. He went to prison for fraud years ago. He got out a few months back. She did not want anyone to know. She said people would judge her. The air thickened around me. She told me he died. I said. I could hear my own voice, distant and flat. Sharice winced. I know. She told everyone he died. She said she wanted a fresh start, that she needed someone stable. She swore me to secrecy. She said she was just trying to make things right with him for the children's sake. For the children's sake, I repeated, almost laughing. She said that. Sharice nodded miserably. Look, Maurice, I should not have said anything. But you've been good to those kids. I did not think it was fair that you were in the dark. I turned off the grill, my hands trembling just enough that I had to shove them into my pockets. Thank you for being honest, I said finally. My voice was rough, but I meant it. She looked like she wanted to say more, then thought better of it. I need to run some errands, Sharice said quietly, standing up. She squeezed my shoulder as she passed. Please do not tell her I told you. I watched her car disappear down the street. The charcoal smoke curled up into the sky in thin gray ribbons. My mind raced. She lied about his death. She lied about her past. She lied about everything. And now the man who had abandoned her, the man I had unknowingly replaced, was back. I went inside, closed the back door, and leaned against the counter. My reflection stared back at me from the glass of the microwave door, blank, cold, a stranger's face. That night, when Tanisha came home, she walked in humming, kissed the children on their heads, and told me her meeting went well. That is good, I said, stacking plates. My voice was smooth. She glanced at me, as if trying to read whether I knew anything. Whatever she saw must have comforted her, because she smiled and went upstairs to shower. I did not ask questions. I did not confront her. Not yet. I was done reacting. I was planning. The next morning, after I dropped the children at school, I came back to the quiet house and sat at the kitchen table with my coffee. On habit, I opened the banking app on my phone to check the mortgage payments and utilities. Numbers have always been easy for me, cleaner than emotions. Except this time, the numbers did not add up. 2 mortgage payments were missing. I frowned, tapped into the transaction history, and scrolled. My heart began to pound. There they were, 2 large withdrawals, each redirected to an unfamiliar account. The recipient's name, Darnell U. Wallace. I whispered it aloud, just to feel how it tasted in my mouth. That was not an accident. That was not an oversight. That was betrayal with routing numbers attached. I heard my father's voice again in my head. If someone wants to play dirty, do not grab mud. Grab proof. That night, when the children were asleep and Tanisha was in the shower, I sat at the dining table with my laptop. I opened a new folder and labeled it, in neat letters, insurance. I downloaded the bank statements and saved them. I took screenshots of the transfers and wrote the dates in a small notebook. Every detail mattered now. Then I picked up her phone from where it was charging in the hallway. She trusted the charger in that spot so much she no longer thought twice about leaving it there. I scrolled through her contacts until I found the one I had seen on the screen, Darnell Red Heart. I opened the message thread. My hands went still as I scrolled. There were hundreds of messages. I did not need to read them all. The latest one was enough. Cannot believe we pulled this off. You always knew he would take care of you, even when I could not. I owe you tea. There were photos attached. Not explicit, but intimate in their own way. The 2 of them sitting close together in a cafe, leaning toward each other in that unconscious way people do when they are comfortable. The triplets were in the background of one, smiling at something off camera. In another, Darnell's hand rested on Jalen's small shoulder like he had some right to claim that space. The date stamp on the photos said last weekend. I had been home that weekend, fixing a leaky sink and helping Jada build a model volcano for school. Tanisha had said she was taking the children to a birthday party for a classmate. My chest tightened. Somewhere inside me, something snapped. It was not a dramatic crack. It was a quiet break, like a branch giving way under ice. I locked her phone, placed it exactly where it had been, and stared at the floor for a long time. Then I took a slow breath, picked up my keys, and walked out of my car. I did not drive far. I parked across from a children's school and waited. Parents came and went, some in suits, some in scrubs, some in hoodies and caps, all of them doing the same thing, showing up. If Darnell was paying school fees now, if he was being introduced back into their world, he would appear here sooner or later. Around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I saw him. A tall man in a gray suit stepped out of a shiny SUV, sunglasses on, smile easy and wide. He had the kind of swagger that said he had never lost a full night's sleep over anyone's pain. The triplets spilled out of the school doors and ran toward him. "Uncle D," Jace shouted, throwing himself at the man's waist. Darnell scooped him up and laughed, hugging all 3 children in turn. He ruffled Jalen's hair, kissed Jada's forehead, and talked to them with a familiarity that made my vision blur for a second. Uncle D. The nickname made sense now. The little references Tanisha had brushed off, as if they were nothing. I gripped the steering wheel until my fingers hurt. This man was not supposed to exist. In my life, he was supposed to be a closed casket and a tragic story told in a quiet grocery store parking lot. But there he was, alive, free, comfortable, back inside the life I had built. I raised my phone and took a photo, then another. Each click felt like a nail in the coffin of whatever love I still had left for Tanisha. That evening, when she came home with the children, she moved around the kitchen smiling, chattering about how busy the day had been. I kept my face neutral, helped the kids with homework, ran baths, and read them stories. When the house was finally quiet, I sent Tanisha a single message. I attached the photo of Darnell hugging the triplets and typed, "I see where my love went." I watched the status, delivered. Read. The 3 dots suggesting she was typing appeared, then vanished. No reply came. I set the phone down and looked out the window at the city lights flickering beyond the trees. "You started this, Tanisha," I whispered. "I will finish it." Sunday morning. The house felt different. Colder, somehow. Tanisha moved around the kitchen in one of my old t-shirts, humming that same Too Sweet tune she always used when she believed she had control of the narrative. She flipped pancakes for the kids, laughing when syrup dripped down Jace's chin. I watched her from the table, not as a husband, not as a man in love, but as someone studying a character in a film. Someone I had once cherished, but no longer recognized. "Morning," she said, glancing over her shoulder. Her tone was soft, practiced. "Morning," I replied. My calm seemed to make her uneasy. The children argued about who had more syrup, and I joined in their play, pretending to measure pancakes like we always did. Underneath, there was a countdown ticking in my mind. When breakfast was done, I told Tanisha, "I will take the kids to the park." The children cheered. Tanisha smiled, relieved. "That would be nice," she said. "Maybe we can all talk when you get back." "Maybe," I said. I helped the triplets get dressed, tied sneakers, zipped jackets. On the drive, Jada chattered about a girl in her class. Jace asked if I thought superheroes ever got tired. Jalen stared out the window, unusually quiet. "Daddy," he said suddenly, "are you mad at Mommy?" The word daddy caught in my throat. "I'm upset," I said honestly. "But I love you. That will not change." He nodded slowly, as if filing the answer away for later. Instead of the park, I took them to my sister Lauren's house a few blocks away. Lauren had always been my backup plan, my safe harbor. When I called her the night before and asked for a favor, she did not ask many questions. She just said, "Bring them in the morning. I will keep them as long as you need." In her living room, the children settled quickly, pulled into cartoons and board games. Lauren watched me carefully. "You look like you have not slept in days," she said. "I have some things to handle," I replied. "Just keep them here. Do not tell Tanisha where they are until I say." Lauren's eyes hardened with that protective look only older sisters have. "Whatever is going on," she said, "do not lose yourself in it." "I will not," I said, though I was not entirely sure. I kissed each child on the forehead. "I will be back soon," I told them. "Be good for Annie, Lauren." As I walked out, I heard Jace telling his aunt about the fort he wanted to build. Their voices followed me to the car like a promise I could not afford to break. When I walked back into my own house, Tanisha was on the couch scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she heard the door. "Where are the kids?" she asked. "With Lauren," I said, closing the door behind me. "We need to talk." I watched the way her fingers tightened around her phone, the way her back straightened. "About what?" she asked, her tone light, almost teasing. She was still trying to perform. "About Darnell," I said. The name cracked the air between us like a sudden clap of thunder. Her face went still. She opened her mouth, then closed it. "You're still on that," she said quietly. I walked closer, each step measured. "You told me he was dead, Tanisha," I said. "You cried in my arms and told me you watched the casket close. Now I see him hugging our children outside their school." She swallowed, eyes glossy. "It is not what you think," she whispered. I pulled my phone from my pocket and opened the photo of Darnell with the children. I held it up to her. "Then tell me what it is," I said. "Explain this. Explain the mortgage payments to his account. Explain the messages about pulling this off." Her face went pale. She reached for the phone, but I stepped back, just out of reach. "Maurice, please," she said. "I did not mean for it to go this far." I laughed once, a short, bitter sound. "How far did you mean for it to go?" I asked. "Just far enough to use me? Just far enough to pay off his debts? You told me he died a hero, Tanisha." Tears spilled over. "He left me with nothing," she said, voice cracking. "No money, no home. I did what I had to do." "No," I replied, my voice dropping to a whisper. "You did what you wanted to do, and you did it with him. You used my love for those children as a shield while you brought him back into our lives." Silence stretched between us, thick and electric. She reached out to touch my arm, and I stepped back as if her hand burned. "I loved you," I said quietly. "God help me, I did. But I cannot tell if the last 6 years were real, or if they were just a performance." She opened her mouth again, maybe to spin another story. I did not let her. I turned and walked toward the stairs. "Where are you going?" she called after me, voice rising. "To get my things," I said, "and to make sure that the next time you see me, it will be on my terms." Her sobs followed me up the stairs, loud and ragged, but I did not look back. I had already made peace with what needed to come next. In the bedroom, I packed slowly, deliberately. A few changes of clothes. My laptop. The notebook where I had written every date, every amount, every detail. On the dresser, our wedding photo leaned in a frame. I picked it up, studied the two people staring out at me from another life, then set it face down. Before I walked out, I sat at the edge of the bed and opened my email. I attached the folder labeled insurance to a message addressed to my lawyer, Mr. Hill. In the subject line, I wrote, "Urgent, Wallace and financial misconduct." Then I hit send. The war had officially begun. I went back downstairs with my bag slung over my shoulder. Tanisha sat on the couch, knees drawn up, staring blankly at the wall. The pancakes for breakfast were still on the table, cold and untouched. She looked up when she heard me. "Maurice," she whispered, "please do not destroy us." I stopped by the front door, my hand on the knob. "You already did," I said. "I'm just refusing to pretend anymore." Then I walked out. For the next few days, the house became a stage for quiet war. I returned each morning, not to rage, but to prepare. Until the court hearing, we still shared walls, but we no longer shared a life. I spoke to her only when necessary. I documented everything. Tanisha tried different tactics. One morning, she made my favorite breakfast and set a plate in front of me as if nothing had happened. "We can fix this," she said. "We do not have to throw everything away." "Drink your juice," I said, nodding toward the glass in front of her, my tone calm. I saw the flicker of doubt in her eyes, the way she hesitated. I had not done anything to her drink, of course, but she did not know that. Her own guilt turned an ordinary glass of orange juice into something that made her palms sweat. That small moment of fear was exactly what I wanted her to feel, not because I wanted to harm her, but because I wanted her to understand that control no longer belonged to her. I did not raise my voice. I did not slam doors. I watched. I waited. I collected. The children felt the tension. Jada started waking up at night, creeping into my room and asking if everything was all right. Jace grew clingy, holding my hand longer than usual. Jalen started asking questions he could not fully articulate. I did my best to shield them, to keep their routine steady, to be the stable presence I had always tried to be. Every time I tucked them in, I whispered, "I am here. I'm not going anywhere." One evening, After the children were asleep and the house had settled, I found Tanisha on the living room floor, curled around a throw pillow like it might keep her from falling apart. Her face was blotchy, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Years ago, that sight would have ripped me open and made me cradle her until she stopped shaking. Tonight, I felt only a slow, cold resolve. She looked up when I stepped into the doorway. "Maurice, please," she said, her voice hoarse. "I will do anything. I will stop seeing him. I will pay everything back. Just do not take the kids." I sat down on the couch across from her. Between us, the folder of printed statements and screenshots lay on the coffee table like a silent jury. "Do you remember when we first met?" I asked quietly. She nodded, staring at her hands. "At the grocery store," she said. "My card kept declining. You paid for everything. You told me their father had died," I said. "You told me you could not do it alone. I believed you." Her fingers trembled. "I told you that because I needed someone to stay," she whispered. "I thought if you knew the truth, you would run. Darnell and I were over. Or I thought we were. I just needed help. I thought I could fix things later. He went to prison for fraud," I said. "You left that part out." She exhaled a shaky breath. "I was ashamed," she said. "I did not want you to see me as the woman who chose a man like that. I thought if I built something new with you, I could bury that part of my life. So you buried it by telling me he was dead," I said. "And when he came back, you dug him up and started funneling our money to him behind my back. For what? For the children's sake?" She flinched. "He is their father," she said weakly. "I thought if I helped him get back on his feet, he could be better for them this time. I did not mean to hurt you. I was trying to survive." "You did not just try to survive," I replied. "You used me. You turned my commitment into an investment for a man who abandoned you. You called me a substitute. You treated me like a wallet with a heartbeat." Her breath hitched. "I did not mean it that way," she insisted. "I said that because I was scared. You were so calm, Maurice. Sometimes it feels like you're judging me." I lashed out. "Do not confuse calm with weakness," I said. "You asked me to leave the life I had built in Seattle. I did that. I sold my home. I put your name on the deed to this house. I raised your children as my own. And when the man who actually helped create them came back, you chose him. You chose him with our money, with our time, with our children's trust." She began to cry again, the sound low and raw. "You are right," she whispered. "I messed up everything. Just do not ruin me completely. I will sign anything. I will move out. I will let you have the house. Just do not take my babies." I looked at her long and hard. "You are not bargaining for mercy," I said. "You are bargaining for a story you can tell other people later. That is what ends tonight." She stared at me, stunned. I stood, feeling the old knot of grief tighten in my chest, and then loosen. "You will pack a bag," I said. "You will go stay somewhere else for a while. I am not doing this so you can say I abandoned you. I am doing this because I am going to protect those kids from your choices, as much as I can." "So you will take them from me," she whispered. "I will do what is best for them," I said. It was the truest thing I could manage, even if the full picture of what that meant was still forming. In my mind, I saw courtrooms, papers, signatures, disappointed looks from relatives who thought they knew the whole story. I was ready for all of it. She tried again, switching tactics, bargaining with practicalities. "We can share custody," she said. "We can tell people we just grew apart. We do not have to drag this through court. Think about them. Think about how this will look." "I am thinking about them," I replied. "That is why I've already sent everything to my lawyer." Her eyes widened. "You already?" "Yes," I said. "You built this story. You will live in it." That night, she packed one duffel bag. She moved slowly around the bedroom, wiping her face, trying to pull herself together. At the door, she paused and turned to me. "When the kids ask where I am," she said in a small voice, "tell them I love them." I closed my eyes for a second. I thought about the nights she had stayed out late without explanation. The afternoon she had spent at cafes with Darnell while I sat in school auditoriums clapping for our children. Then I opened my eyes. "I will always tell them you love them," I said. "But I will also tell them the truth." She flinched, then nodded like someone who understood she had no more moves. She stepped out onto the porch and pulled the door closed behind her. The house felt enormous and hollow in the sudden quiet. I sat at the kitchen table, thumbed through the stack of printed bank statements, and allowed myself a small, private exhale. Her begging had revealed everything I needed to know. Her guilt, her priorities, her fear. It also reminded me of the tools I still had: truth, patience, and paperwork. The day of the court hearing arrived with the calm of an early morning that feels like it knows a secret. I dressed in a dark suit, straightened my tie, and looked at myself in the mirror. I saw my father's features in my own reflection: steady eyes, firm jaw, a man who had seen enough chaos in his work as a corrections officer to know how to keep his own house in order. "Remember what I told you," he had said on the phone the night before. "Collect facts. People crumble with facts. Do not let her pull you into a shouting match." Judges do not respect shouting. They respect preparation. "I am prepared," I told him. "Then walk in there like the truth is on your side," he said. Because it is. The courthouse was colder than I expected. Tanisha sat at a table across the aisle, her hair styled perfectly, makeup hiding the redness around her eyes. Beside her sat her attorney, a woman with a stack of papers and a sharpened look, as if she was ready to dismantle my life with well-placed questions. I sat with Mr. Hill, my lawyer, a quiet man with a calm manner and a reputation for being relentless with documentation. We spread our own papers across the table: bank statements, phone records, photographs. Every piece of evidence that showed a pattern of deception. When a judge entered, everyone rose. We sat again, and the hearing began. Tanisha's attorney spoke first, painting a picture of a devoted mother married to a man who had become distant and controlling. She mentioned my sudden detachment, my cold demeanor, my decision to remove the children without warning. I listened without interrupting, my hands folded. Mr. Hill had told me this would happen. "They will attack your temperament," he said. "They cannot argue with the numbers, so they will argue with your mood." When it was our turn, Mr. Hill stood and began laying out the evidence. He moved slowly, methodically, like a surgeon. "Your Honor," he said, "this case is not about a marriage that simply fell apart. It is about intentional deception, financial misconduct, and the emotional manipulation of 3 young children and the man who has been raising them." He presented the bank statements showing mortgage payments diverted to Darnell's account. He showed the messages where Tanisha and Darnell discussed pulling this off and counted on my steady income. He handed the judge photographs of Darnell with the triplets at school, taken on days when Tanisha claimed to be elsewhere. The judge's expression shifted as he read. Tanisha shifted in her seat, her composure cracking. Her attorney tried to object, questioning the context of the messages, suggesting that the transfers were temporary loans or help for a friend in need. Mr. Hill remained unbothered. "The recipient is the children's biological father," he said. "The same man Mrs. Ross told my client was deceased. She built a marriage on that lie. Then, when he was released from prison, she funneled family funds to him without my client's knowledge, while reintroducing him to the children behind my client's back." The judge turned to me. "Mr. Ross," he said, "do you wish to say anything?" I stood, my knees surprisingly steady. "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "These documents show what happened more clearly than I ever could with emotions. I love my wife. I love these children. I left my career, my home, and my independence to build a life with them. I have been their father in every practical way since they were 3 months old. I changed their diapers. I stayed home when they were sick. I taught them how to ride bikes." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "My wife told me their father was dead. I grieved a stranger so I could honor his memory while raising his children. Now I find out he is alive, that he has been in contact with my wife for months, that our mortgage payments were going to him. I'm not asking the court to punish her. I am asking the court to protect the children and to restore some measure of stability." The courtroom was very quiet. Tanisha looked at me, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, I saw the woman from the grocery store again, the one overwhelmed and desperate. Then I remembered she had taken that desperation and turned it into a weapon. After a long pause, the judge spoke. "The evidence shows a clear pattern of deception and financial misconduct," he said. "It is also evident that Mr. Ross has served as the primary caregiver for these children. For their stability and well-being, I am granting Mr. Ross primary physical custody and full control of the marital residence and financial accounts directly related to the children's care." Tanisha's attorney started to protest, but the judge raised a hand. "Mrs. Ross will have visitation," he continued, "initially supervised, to ensure that reintroduction is conducted in a structured and healthy way. Further decisions regarding financial restitution can be addressed in subsequent hearings. The gavel came down with a finality that felt almost unreal. It was done. Not everything, but enough. Enough to breathe. Outside the courthouse, a few local reporters lingered, sensing a story. One called out, "Mr. Ross, do you have any comment?" A camera lens pointed at my face, waiting for anger or triumph. I gave a small, tired smile. "No," I said. "The documents speak for themselves." Then I walked past them. I did not need the world to know the full story. I just needed my children to grow up in a house where the truth was not a stranger. Tanisha stood a few feet away, near the steps. Her shoulders sagged, her eyes vacant. She looked at me as if I were someone she had once known but could no longer reach. For a moment, I felt a flicker of something like pity. Then I remembered Jace calling another man uncle while I sat alone in my car, watching. That night, I returned to the house that was now legally mine. The triplets were asleep in their beds, their small chests rising and falling steadily. I moved through the room slowly, touching the walls I had painted, the furniture I had assembled, the photographs I had hung. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of whiskey. I had not drunk in years, not since the triplets were babies, and I decided I wanted to be fully present every night. The whiskey burned down my throat, but the burn fell clean. It felt like something sharp cutting away the last remnants of a rot I had not known was there. I stood in front of the photo wall again. The pictures had not changed, but my understanding of them had. I reached out and touched the frame of the picture from Ocean City, where the children's hands were covered in sand and ice cream. I whispered, "I will never let anyone take you from me. Not lies, not pride, not another man's return." The next morning, sunlight filtered through the blinds, casting soft bands of light across the floor. I woke earlier than usual, not from anxiety, but from habit. I brewed coffee and let the aroma fill the kitchen. For the first time in months, the house felt like it was breathing with me instead of against me. The triplets padded into the kitchen one by one, still in their pajamas. Jada climbed onto my lap uninvited, resting her head on my chest. "Daddy," she said, "are we okay now?" I kissed the top of her head. "We are going to be okay," I said. "Things will be different, but we are going to be okay." Later that day, I took them to the park I had promised them earlier that week. They ran ahead, their laughter echoing off the swings and slides. Jace raced Jalen to the top of the climbing frame. Jada tried to teach another little girl how to make a perfect sandcastle. I sat on a bench with my hands in my pockets, watching them. I had lost a wife, yes, but in a strange, bitter way, I had saved my family. I had protected them from a story built on lies and replaced it with something harder, but truer. As the children argued about who would go down the slide first, Jalen jogged back to me, breathing hard. "Daddy," he said, "are you staying here forever?" I looked him in the eyes. "As long as I am alive," I said, "I am your father. That will not change." He searched my face, then nodded slowly, accepting that as enough for now. I watched them play, their laughter rising into the clear Maryland sky. Betrayal was no longer the center of our story. It was part of our past, a dark chapter that had forced me to see clearly. Revenge had not been about screaming or breaking things. It had been about reclaiming my life with evidence, patience, and resolve. As the sun began to dip, turning the playground gold, I felt something I had not felt in a long time, a quiet, steady satisfaction. Tanisha had called me a substitute. She had tried to reduce years of love and labor to a temporary role. Sitting there on that bench, watching the 3 children who had once fit in the crooks of my arms, now racing each other across the playground, I knew better. "You will never be a substitute," I whispered to myself. "You are their father, and they will never forget it." I called the children over and promised them ice cream on the way home. Their faces lit up, and they grabbed my hands, one on each side, Jace hanging off my arm just a little. We walked back to the car together, for shadows stretching long and unbroken across the sidewalk. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.